What do you know about Vegas?
Got a few stories, Vegas stories. We're not going to share on this episode.
I think
You were there for a
Vegas
few
has
of
come
them.
up a couple times. we're going to take a different spin on Vegas today than some of the other stories that have made on this podcast. But the real premise today, the bamboo banger, is something that's become a real trend that I've noticed and I'm a big fan of, but like everything it gets run away with, is it's really hip now to be resetting your nervous system, and that your nervous system is everything. And I don't think that that's a coincidence with the times that we live in. A lot of stuff we talk about on the podcast is leading to regulating the nervous system. So today we're going to be talking about the vagus nerve, and actually more specifically polyvagal theory. It's going to be a large portion of it, but why resetting the nervous system is so important and why it's become such a trend.
Sounds dirty. I'm in. I've never heard of when you brought this up, I actually hadn't heard of this theory, and so it gave me a really cool opportunity to dive in and do my own research and do some reading on it and find a little bit more about the godfather who founded this, Stephen Porges, which I know you'll be able to provide a background. But as I was listening and reading and researching this theory, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is basically what I've been trying to do for the last 5 years personally, figure out how to reset my nervous system in various situations. And it was really interesting to dive in. So I'm excited for this episode.
You actually made me spit out some water when you said sounds dirty when proposing this.
The polyvagal theory. What theory are we talking about?
So I love it. I love it. Yeah. So as we kind of jump in, and I'm with you. I didn't realize, it's funny that you mentioned that, like studying all these modalities, for me, that started out with performance and productivity, right? We talked about in the podcast. That was my initial drive, which led me into meditation, and which is quite honestly, spoiler alert, one of the biggest ways we can regulate is the breath and meditation. But it took me that direction, and then into, hypnosis and the subconscious mind. And at the end of the day, what I realized is, spiritual things aside, what I was looking to do is regulate my nervous system as well, because when we're in a calm state, when we are in the parasympathetic, that's when we're creative, that's when we can function effectively. So we're going to jump in. As you mentioned, Dr. Stephen Porges is the godfather of specifically polyvagal theory, and he really came up with the 3-circuit model, and that safety requires signal. So this safe mode that we're looking to be in to operate our best requires us to reframe and challenge the hack mentalities to directly diving into being present in the moment and acknowledging when we are shifting in and out of these systems. So as we're oscillating, how quickly can we get back to neutral? So I think that when we look at resetting our nervous system, you already know what it's like to have a set nervous system. When we're children, it's more rapid, but think about how quickly a baby cries and gets into the parasympathetic, breathing heavily, really grasping for air. And then how quickly a mother's or a father's soothing voice or close contact can really calm a baby, and how quickly they can go into the sympathetic. You know how to do this, but our conditioning over the course of life, especially in modern day, can make it challenging. Any thoughts coming up there from back when you were a wee
when I was a baby?
Toddler?
Yeah, good old Mrs. Harris, the matriarch, soothing voice, calmed me down. Absolutely. So I mean, I just even think about my own kids when they were little and they would cry, and you rock them, or you have this low soothing voice. If you're screaming at them, they're just going to get more chaotic, right? So it's 100% true. But when you said the word safety, as humans, our whole being is to seek safety. Like whether we know it or not, we're able to function at such a high level when we feel safe, comfortable, confident. We feel safe, right? And when we get out of those states, fight or flight, maybe we freeze, maybe we're stressed, all those things, that's the autonomic nervous system. Basically are the things that happen that we can't consciously control. Your breathing, your heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, your recovery and mobilization under stress, after stress. All of those things we can't really control, but the sympathetic that you mentioned too, that mobilizes the body. It's the one that helps us run, fight, compete, react, all of those things, right? So what we're talking about is leveraging these multiple systems and understanding them, so that way we can reset them when we're in these different states. And I know the polyvagal theory has multiple states. So there's 3 of them that we'll dive into, but that's what all humans go through. Everyone who's listening to this podcast knows what stress feels like. They know what anger or frustration feels like. They know what a scary situation feels like. They also know what a safe situation feels like. It's like having the conversation with you versus having the conversation with a stranger. I'm typically going to have my guard down and have a very open and honest conversation with you because I know you. I feel safe around you. A stranger, I don't know what their motives are yet. I don't know them. And so
most of the time,
right? But that's why most people have their guard up in a lot of situations, because you're not feeling 100% safe around this person just yet. And you can see it in facial expressions. You can see it in their faces and their mannerisms and all that. Like how you can almost see how someone's feeling if you're in tune and you're aware of your surroundings.
I think that is the signal we're primarily driving from. This is one of the key signals, right? If you think about a battery. And back to Vegas, which I thought it was funny. We were kind of rapping beforehand. I didn't realize that from the Latin origin, it means to wander, which it's a
wandered
wandering
around
nerve.
Vegas a few times.
Exactly. Apparently, there is not really a correlation there.
A different state of mind.
Las Vegas in the Spanish origin means the meadow or the lowland. So I guess I was off.
Well, it's
there.
not spelled the same, right? Las Vegas, V-E,
exactly.
Vegas, V-A. Yeah.
But a fun overlap. But
yeah,
it's the longest cranial nerve. And it runs from our brainstem, which when we think about it as kind of a V, the brainstem being the base, goes down through our neck, our chest, and in our gut. Huge, what we'll talk about, those nerves wandering down to our gut, and how your gut's really regulating a ton when we talk about diet and breathing from the belly. Huge, because that is where those responses are shooting back up to our brain. Starts making a lot more sense. And so this is what's primarily involved in the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest system. So that's when we're healing. It's when we're processing. It's when your body's doing all the things that it's supposed to do. Growing hair, digesting food, breathing, heart beating. Things your body doesn't need you to tell it to do. Subconscious, right? This is why it's key to keep this. The more we can be in a restful state, which is back to the point, the biggest challenge these days with everything coming our way, the more our body and our brain is going to function optimally.
So give me an example of how one would, or how you personally would get out of a stressful state back into the parasympathetic. Like what are some tips, or what are some best practices?
Yeah, so I think that's a big portion of this, and Dr. Porges' theory is we have these hacks, right? Which was my method. How am I going to hack this with the cold plunge? Drops you in parasympathetic, slows down your breathing. It's considered a hack. Deep breathing and breath work. A big one for me is humming. Taking a huge in-breath, and if you hum on the way out, that vibration is really relaxing the parasympathetic system. And so, like with those hums, just imagine micro vibrations shooting all the way down. You feel it throughout your body, but if you really notice, it goes all the way down to your stomach. But when we think about this as kind of a layered conversation with the body, it's not just going to be flipping a switch with those. They can help, but it's really about going through whatever situation you're in. And Dr. Porges is the safe and sound protocol, which is kind of stimulate the vagal nerve. And then you have metabolic support from your body, from the lifestyle, everything that you're doing within your lifestyle that supports these things to be able to create the space to figure out, okay, I am in the sympathetic and I need to get to the parasympathetic. So these are some things we can do. And we did it kind of before jumping onto the podcast with a little quick exercise to prime. But it is really more about noticing day in and day out how big your oscillations are and being able to combat them in real time.
Yeah, and they can, I mean, the swings are wide sometimes, and they come out of nowhere. Sometimes you don't even know why your nervous system is so high and, and reacting in such a high anxiety or stressful situation when nothing is really actually going on. But I think to your point, you stack the evidence of like previous situations, and you almost are able to recover quicker when you realize what you've done in the past to get out of those situations, whether it's just walking outside or humming, meditation, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever works for you. The idea is to try and calm everything down, and whatever, whether it's talking to somebody. You mentioned the vagal pathway and the vagal nerves, and there's two of them, right? You have the ventral vagal and the dorsal vagal pathway.
That's bang on. You did your homework. But there's also the third circuit is the sympathetic. This is the fight or flight that all reptiles have. And that was a part of this theory is like, why do mammals need this third circuit as opposed to reptiles that are always in fight or flight, which is pretty fascinating that it took them that long to realize. Think about how your dog, how often, even if it's just been laying down for a few minutes, it gets up and stretches and yawns.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about yawning in a second. You should be yawning all the time. Yawning's great. And the dogs do this to regulate that nervous system so that they can digest, that they can do everything. And they're doing it out of habit. We sit stagnant all day, let it all pent up, and then wonder why we're a ball of tenseness throughout the day and full of this stress. Easily said, harder to monitor.
So yeah, let's jump into that. I always remembered yawning meant it was a lack of oxygen. So you would yawn, not necessarily you were tired, but you yawn because you were trying to gather more oxygen. But as you grow older, and that may be true, but as you grow older, it does reset whatever you're going through. Like if you just open your mouth for a while and you like breathe in heavy to kind of slow it down, I think you're supposed to have 4 or 5 breaths a minute, something like that is like where your regulated system. Yeah. Chris Williamson, the podcast Modern Wisdom, he said he was averaging about 4.5 breaths a minute, and that's pretty low. Like those are some big, slow, deep breaths in whatever he's doing, and that takes a lot of practice.
It does, but break that down. This for your logical brain. Let's break that down for the listeners right now. It's the breathing of 5 in, 5 out. So, listeners, if you're driving, maybe don't participate in this, but just do a count. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. That cycle 3 times gets you to 5 breaths a minute. And then you repeat that for 3 to 5 minutes. Just notice how your state changes. You can't argue with it unless you have some special wiring up top, I think.
That's true. It's kind of like box breathing, in extreme situations. Yep. That's why that's important. But let me give an example. We've all felt this. You're driving a car, you're with your spouse or you're with a friend or whatever, and your tunes are on, comfortable, calm, everything's cool. And all of a sudden behind you, you see, and you've done nothing wrong, you're just driving, but you see cop lights behind you. And you're like, oh my God, did I do something wrong? And your nervous system just immediately goes to fight or flight. Like, what do I do? Or it could be, I'm frozen. I'm just going to keep going. And then the cop passes you and you're like, oh, okay. And you take a deep breath and you're back. That's like a really good analogy and a really good example of real life of how your nervous system reacts to situations that could potentially be extreme, that once it passes and it's, oh, everything's okay, I'm safe now, how it goes back and can set itself. So the polyvagal theory is trying to figure out how you do that in all situations. And that was you weren't consciously resetting your nervous system in that situation. You were just like, oh, okay, I'm in the clear. And then now I'm back to normal. But it takes a second for your heart to like slow down and get back to normal because it spiked so much when you thought you were going to get a ticket or something was happening.
Is a great example and exactly the right process for day-to-day and something that come up or a conversation with a colleague or your spouse. You could be totally in the right mindset, calm, cool, collected, having a great day. And one thing that can be said that's extremely scary, jarring, your concern for them or concern for yourself will just immediately move you into your heart rate, rapid breathing, temperature raise. And these are the signs that we can look for and say, okay, wait, let's reframe, not use the hacks, but once we truly associate it, our body and brain can then adapt and bring us back slowly and more in real time. Not give us an hour, say something we don't mean, do something we don't mean to do, and then have to deal with those consequences. There's a very Zen meditative portion of this, but this also brings the science of why and what your body and your brain are fighting for day in and day out to reach regulation.
All right. So he brings up a concept called neuroception. Dr. Stephen Porges does. Porges or Porges?
Porges.
Porges.
I believe.
Is it Porsche or Porsche?
Porges. Porsche.
So key concept, neuroception. And basically how I understand it to be is we're constantly in this subconscious state of scanning for danger or safety in all situations, in all environments. And so do we have this brain perception to be able to see these things and almost prepare for them? So if something does happen, we're able to remain calm, cool, and collected. You see that, like, I saw this video of this, I think it was a jujitsu guy. He had a jujitsu shirt. He might've been ex-military, whatever, but it was a guy that was fit and strong. And he was holding another guy down on an airplane who apparently tried to open up the exit door. And everyone was applauding this dude for like restraining this guy who was just out of his mind as being so calm, cool, and collected. Because I guarantee you that guy had very strong neuroception of just like, okay, where's there's possible danger on this airplane? And stacking evidence of what I've done in my life to be healthy and to be aware and to recognize possibilities. I'm able to now jump in and assist and restrain this dangerous situation in a calm demeanor. He didn't freak out. He didn't fight the guy. He didn't freeze and let it happen because he didn't know what to do. He was fully well prepared. And I think that's what builds strong neuroception, to be able to handle yourself well in those types of situations.
Another bang on example, saw that same clip. And that's where we get back to training, right? Like situational training for these listeners, likely in your business or career, but also in your family. Like, if we can kind of visualize and realize what our cues are, where our nervous system is spiking, where the green, yellow, and red lights are, that's how we can monitor. And it takes effort, but if we can get this down and really pay attention while monitoring the lifestyle cues, a regulated nervous system is the best gift you can give to everyone in your life.
Talk to me about co-regulation.
Co-regulation, there can be a dependence on that, but I like to use the example of a lot of folks that are in kind of isolation. We co-regulate together because our nervous systems will find sync. If you are having a conversation with someone, you may not notice it, but your breathing patterns will match. Not just because of your speaking, but because you are in tune with that other person's nervous system. So that will naturally happen, especially if you're open to it and in tune. But folks that are in isolation, this is why we see a lot of people that love pets. You know, your pet will literally, as you give it affection and it responds to that, your nervous system is responding to another living being that's helping you co-regulate that nervous system. Equine therapy. Folks are using horses to get out, and the horse is so sensitive to human emotion that it's going to know if you're jumpy or tense or in that mode. The horse is going to respond. So it shows you how to move with another living being and help co-regulate with other living beings. This also happens with plants. People get this out of gardening. I think that they use that as an example on the Williamson show of us being plants, and we're growing and adapting based on what's in our environment. Hence, prune your garden and keep it upright. Is that what you were kind of getting at with the co-regulation?
Yeah, exactly. That basically we don't only regulate ourselves in isolation. It actually, our nervous systems influence one another. So actually a good example this week, a friend of mine, we were talking and she was showing me her hand and it was all sweaty. And she goes, "Steven, I'm literally having a panic attack right now." And I'm like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, literally, I'm in it right now." And I know exactly what she's talking about because I've been in and you're like, I was driving to a meeting and I was having one driving like a while ago. And I'm like, where's this coming from? We don't even know where it comes from half the time. But co-regulation, she was open and told me what she was going through in real time of everything that was happening. And I said, "Here's the good news. You're fine and you're going to be fine." And she was like, "Yeah, you're right. Okay." And it almost like helped because I was so calm and she was able to co-regulate by being open and talking to me about what she was going through. And That's similar to, obviously, that's a trust thing, right? That's a close friend. You may not do that with a stranger, but you might do it with, a sibling or a friend or a therapist or whatever, right? But you're going to have co-regulation. Like, don't be shy. And if you're going through, so you need some help to regulate your nervous system. Like for you, for an example, if I were to come to you and be like, hey man, can you take me through some breath work right now? Like just kicking off the pod before we went live, we did a quick breath work and that just reset the nervous system getting ready for this episode. And so working with each other in community, because humans can't survive by themselves. You just can't. And so community, like everything you're doing with others is what keeps us thriving, which I think was just really interesting. The co-regulation piece, like we're not codependent necessarily. Like we don't require other people. You don't need to rely on other people, but independent enough and aware enough to be able to regulate and make change with others is required.
What else is there, right? At the end of the day, like it's the whole reason we're doing this is to project our best self to others, to all thrive together, or at least coexist together. So I think you nailed it there, that even though it's not about dependence, it's the whole point is that we're trying to operate together effectively and make the most out of this spin around the globe. So to kind of land this episode and get the key points out is you can't think your way into safety. If you keep thinking and thinking and thinking, as much as our thoughts shape our actions, if we're not taking the action of moving the body and telling the body what safety is, we're not going to be able to do it. You have to face repeated tolerable challenge and make those subtle adjustments. And I'd ask the listeners, like, what's an example this week where your body's reacted before your mind explained why? And if you can name which state you were in, that's step one. We can speak out loud and say it. It may seem a little weird if you're around other people, literally naming the state out loud, catching it. And I think it's going to help change how we perceive the world and can operate together.
Well, it allows you to be far more creative, far more confident in everything you're doing. You'll have longevity, you're happier, you feel good. Even Dr. Porges said on that Modern Wisdom podcast, he's 83 years old, and he uses a tilt machine to just be active for 10 minutes every morning. And he does like deep breaths upside down, and then he'll do like fast breaths, and he works his nervous system every day, and he tricks his nervous system to, hey, I'm still here. Like, because if you're not doing these things and you're sedentary, that's when idle mode, that's when the thoughts come in, that's when your body starts shutting down. And then that's when, if your goal is longevity and being as successful as you possibly can in everything that you're doing, you've got to trick your body to keep moving, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And so I think that's a huge piece of what we're talking about here is like calm mind, happy mind, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, I think the common myth is that treating anxiety like it's something external is kind of the miscue, which I've been guilty of in the past. It's our body's own internal state that's being broadcasted outward. And that's something that we really can have a large control on, taking that responsibility. Like and subscribe. We will be back at it next week. And pay attention to that old vagal nerve of yours and how it's treating you this week.